This real-side experience would begin with me in the presence and company of an individual, a woman, that my personal self had never encountered before, based on her appearance at least, no current lifetime memory file of her at any rate. However, my real awareness provided impressions, assured the personal self that she was a real guide, as is frequently the case in my real-side experiences, that the guides assume alternative outward forms, but that which animates through them is the ears recognizing a real light being that is a real guide, that the real awareness can readily determine, but the personal self alone would have been unable, limited to just what it visually and literally is presented with, to draw its conclusions from. Anyway, the guide would draw my attention to a kind of cylindrical container. Our surroundings seemed to suggest we were in a factory of sorts, though dark, dingy, ill-lit, metallic pipes predominating the scene, running every which way, huge concrete pillars supporting the ceiling above, a thick smoke pervading the air. Within the cylinder, although nothing visually was very apparent, I had the impressions of 3 beings, but it was as though they were trapped, contained, were requesting assistance to extricate themselves from their predicament, and indeed this was the reason the guide had revealed this situation to me, an opportunity to assist these trapped beings. It was as though they were beings, numbering 3, as I said, that could potentially be very instrumental with what the guides and Dwayne are doing galactically, and that they would be stepping up and begin their own awareness processes also, that they were very gifted beings and would excel in their ears recognizing overall objective, an objective that is the essence and drive for all real awareness animating through consciousness-affected body forms. And it was so that they were just reaching a stage where they would make their initial first steps into the reality of the ears and their true being selves, and as I said, they were very gifted, their consciousnesses developed of a particular, that they had quite the varied assortment of creational capability. However, it seemed that, as can sometimes happen, that the dark forces, recognizing a soon-to-be-stepping up individual, will intercede and make use of agreements in that individual's consciousness which allow them to attack them, imprison, or contain them, that these 3 beings, through the agreements they had that extended to the dark forces, and their ability then to interject into their simulated affairs, had been placed, effected for themselves creational positioning in which they were contained in a kind of pseudo-dimension, trapped and restricted by elements of the dark forces, and had been there for quite the duration of so-called time. At this moment then, as they hadn't stepped up just yet, but were soon to do so, they hadn't connected with the real awareness that they are, and so were very much locked into the personal self, and oblivious of exactly what was befalling them, for indeed their visual experience would be somewhat different to the actuality of their confinement in their pocket dimension, as though a cyber-simulated overlap designed to conceal what was in fact an area of creation, a dimension of blackness, but a curious blackness, very thick and oppressive, inky and somehow alive, like a dimensional area comprised of black slime, that had all beings that were retained there, immersed within this substance. I was agreeable to assist these three beings, as they were basically agreeable to be assisted, so a shared agreement that would work. They had effected for themselves the potentiality of a rescuer, and so individuals can step into that available role if they choose. Really then, we always can only participate in the experiences of others. They dictate the terms, lay out the script, and design the scenes and sets. Really then, they are not only trapping themselves in situations that require extrication, but then deciding to free themselves through the assistance of others they have assigned the role of as their rescuer. The scene would switch and actually take place in the upstairs of my recreated physical level house, the house which represents the consciousness, the storehouse of all our agreements. The upstairs, more so the unseen levels of life, where agreement will play out initially, then filter through to the physical, descend from the upstairs to the ground floor, and those we encounter in our houses indicate agreement we have with them, which allows them to be present. As such, agreement shared between individuals, even if temporary, that of rescue, could representationally be presented in our houses, and the upstairs suggesting it taking place on the other life-level dimensions, and not a physical level, ground floor occurrence. Joining me would be a group of other individuals also agreeable to assist, and interestingly among the group would be Alex Jones. I'm uncertain if it was the actual individual or just another using his form, but it's possible that such characters are involved in far more than we may realize on the physical, such as David Icke and some of his other dimensional activities that I have shared, all effected from a consciousness that, although perhaps not necessarily aware of the guides or the ears, is a consciousness of a far more exploratory nature, a consciousness not programmed and content to be as limited as the vast majority of humans are. Anyway, we were to release the three beings one at a time, and we had to perform a very complex and elaborate, almost ritualistic series of actions, for want of a better term, and this required that we all rather collaborate and combine our efforts. The whole process was very difficult to describe, visually at any rate, and evidently orchestrated by the real awareness, as the personal self could not possibly have known how to do such, based on its current available memory files of experiences and consciousness-developed abilities. But we were as though reaching out and connecting with this dark, black slime-based area of creation, and indeed would this slime seem to make its presence known in the upstairs of my house, as it slowly filled the room, and was flowing over us, almost engulfing us in its form. And indeed, the impressions were that this slime was sentient, a body type of a kind, and I would be reminded of the black goo that has been spoken of by researchers and whistleblowers, a substance that is alive and animated by some form of artificial intelligence. My impressions were that this sentient black slime harboured no ill intent or attitudes of abrasiveness, but that it was being used by the dark forces, and where it had come from, this other dimensional area was either its home, a home that then consisted of itself, a dimension of simply black slime, or that it had been placed there, and the dark forces then were positioning individuals, particularly those stepping up, or those which indicate signs that at some stage they very likely will do so within this black slime realm, and the slime wasn't harming the individuals placed within its realm. They just became absorbed into it, and somewhat trapped there, and with, as I said, a kind of cyberspace overlap of simulation which concealed the fact, an overlap that was placed by the dark forces. And this black slime now wasn't attacking us exactly as we connected with its realm, and it rather manifested and bled over into the house we were in, but seemed it was just its consciousness drive to absorb everything within itself, though those absorbed would retain their own consciousness construct. They wouldn't be assimilated and become a part of it, or anything like that, as my impressions revealed. The black slime realm, then, was just a useful place to contain individuals seemingly, as the slime flowed over us as we proceeded. Emerging from it would be all manner of insect-like body forms, though of a design and size that suggested they were not exactly earth-based, as though many body forms, animals, insects, humans, and other body types had found themselves in the black slime realm, were trapped within it, and rather oblivious through the dark force afforded simulated overlap. And then another simulated scene would superimpose itself onto that which we were operating within, but occupying the corner of the room, initially comprising of just a slime, the realm of the black slime, but then the slime would as though recede, and revealed now was the simulated dark force provided overlap that the individual we were trying to extricate was experiencing. It was in fact a young boy, around the age of 10 to 12, and his simulated overlap consisted of him being the son of a wealthy family, but of course this wasn't the reality of his situation. We had now connected in with the boy, and his exact position in the slime realm, and we then were able to pull him out and into the room of my house. Extraction from the slime realm, and the overlapping scene of where he had been would fade, and as we severed our link with the slime realm, so the black slime that had been flowing into the room and over us would diminish and withdraw back to where it hailed from. As it transpired, the boy's name was Andrew. He was a human, and he was most grateful at being rescued, and indeed, the guide from earlier, the one who had offered me this opportunity to assist in this extraction, would be present with the group and I once again, and she would congratulate us on our success and the liberation of a boy who would be, as I said, very instrumental in everything galactic project orientated, as he was very gifted and now was set and agreeable to step up with the guides and Dwayne. As I said, he was the first of 3 we were to rescue from the slime realm, and we would have to go through presumably the same procedure again, but ultimately, as the 3 beings wanted and were agreeable to rescue, this then would be their experience, and success really was assured, I would suggest. As the guide thanked us in turn, my attention then was drawn to each individual of the group, and there was one other that I did recognize, aside from the one who either was Alex Jones or was adopting his form, and that would be a new friend Jeremy, and my impressions revealed that he was the genuine individual also. For as no one is restricted to any particular form on the real side, so it always pays to have the real awareness influx of impressions that can read that which is behind and animating the surface body forms that we encounter, and the experience would end there.